Welcome back to another episode and the start of the third season of EpicEarth. EpicEarth is a podcast for those curious about the STEM fields and the awesome, quirky, and fun experiences and research that is taking place right now. This is episode number 17, Down to Earth in the Aerospace Lab. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride as we take a journey around this epic Earth.
I found it all so fascinating, just learning all the information.
Nobody told me I couldn't do it, and I loved it.
And now I know how to learn. Like, this is a doable thing.
You know, that's an impact that we can't ignore.
Welcome to our third season of EpicEarth. My name is Ashley Bosa. I'm a PhD student here in the Geosciences Department at Boise State, and with me I have my awesome co-host Brian Rosenblatt.
Ooh, how's it going? EpicEarth number 3, let's do it.
I know, isn't it crazy, Brian? Like, we are in our third season, meaning we've been doing this for well over a year already.
Oh yeah,
it's just crazy to me.
Absolutely, it's flown by.
Yeah.
How many total episodes do we have so far?
I can't believe you're asking me that question. I think that we have 15. This is our 16th.
Sheesh.
Yeah, 14th or 15th.
Don't quote us on that.
Yeah, just go to our website and you'll figure it out. So Brian has now graduated. He's no longer a master's student. He is a master.
I am a master.
Just not a master's student. But Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I actually moved over to the physics department at Boise State, and I'm teaching 6 credits of physics labs, so 6 total physics labs per semester as a full-time temporary faculty member. So
that's awesome.
Making some money and still doing what I like to do.
Yeah, and the best part is that you only have to grade homework now. You don't actually have to do it.
Yeah,
so.
That's true, but it's like 130 total reports every week, so it's a lot.
It's like doing homework.
Yeah, it is homework.
Well, that's exciting, and we're so happy for you. Still happy that you could join us to do this podcast, so thank you.
Wouldn't miss it. Thanks for having me.
Brian's awesome. And to kickstart our third season of EpicEarth, we have a fantastic guest with us today, Angela Seibert, who is joining us from the Geoscience Department. She is a second-year master's student, and she works under Dr. Nancy Glenn in the Boise Center Aerospace Lab, so the BCAL lab, which is a cool place. Lots of awesome people in there. And Angela focuses a lot on light detection and ranging, or something we more commonly call LiDAR, to make 3D models of peatlands and measure vegetation structure. So welcome, Angela.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, this is great. We've wanted to get you on this podcast for a while, so...
I'm glad you waited because I had no idea what I was doing.
I feel like a lot of people feel that way, but I'm sure that you do know exactly what you're doing, and you have for a long time.
Yeah.
And now,
what makes you, you?
So Angela, to sort of get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what makes you Angela?
Yeah, well, I love environmental science. Obviously, that's why I'm here in the Geoscience Department. But other than that, I feel like I have a broader personality. I like roller skating a lot. I've been doing that a ton with different people in the department. I've been getting into snow sports, like snowboarding. That's been a really fun thing to learn. I love learning new things because, yeah, with snowboarding comes a lot of failure.
Yeah.
And same with grad school. And then I also love music, and I'm passionate about environmental justice. And that's kind of how I got into this field, I think, is from that passion. And I'm hoping to develop technical skills here in grad school that I can carry over and somehow apply to the environmental justice field, whether it's through hazard monitoring or just doing more sustainable forestry, working with that, because my work revolves around using LiDAR to measure trees. So, yeah.
That's really cool. And where did you grow up, Angela?
I grew up on the East Central coast of Florida.
Okay.
So a different environment for sure.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and funny enough, enough, I didn't know what remote sensing was until I came here.
Yeah. Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So it's been a huge learning curve for you over the last couple years.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And Florida, I don't know which one I like better, Idaho or Florida. I feel like they both have their own elements to love. Florida has beaches.
Yeah.
Idaho's mountains.
It's like comparing apples and oranges, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Not to jump the gun, but do you think you would prefer to stay out in the West, or would you like to go back to the East after you're done with your program?
I definitely don't think I'll be going back to Florida, even though I just said that. I like them both. But I'm actually planning on moving to Minnesota after my master's because my partner is over there doing her PhD.
Nice.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
It's a good middle ground. It's like an in-between.
Yeah, the Midwest.
Maybe not as big as mountains, but you still get that like sort of alpine tree, sort of nice little forests.
Yeah, funny enough, my field site is in Minnesota, so I see that as kind of a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
I'm studying Minnesota in Idaho, only to go over to Minnesota.
That's really funny. Yeah. I guess you kind of get beaches too along lakes.
Lake Superior is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So
have you guys seen Lake Superior?
I have in the winter, like dead middle of winter.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So actually, just this winter, I went up there to visit my colleagues at Michigan Tech and got to see the ice volcanoes that form on Lake Superior. So I'm sure it looks completely different in the summer.
I've never seen an ice volcano. I don't even know what that looks like.
Well, you will.
Yeah, I guess I will.
They're pretty cool. I recommend it.
I've never been.
Yeah, it's nice. It's beautiful. At my field site, the air is really clean.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Well, I'll be moving to Minneapolis, though.
Nice.
That's
not so
less.
clean. Yeah, not so clean.
But
maybe
it's an awesome
a little
city.
bit clean.
It's an awesome city.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So you kind of talked about this a little bit already, but what really got you interested in your field work or the study that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I think mainly the work I did in undergrad really pushed me towards research. So I was working in a lab at Florida State University under a professor more focused on biogeochemistry of peat. I also looked at mushrooms. That's beside the point. Other than that, the women in that lab were also part of the LGBTQ community. So I just felt a sense of acceptance because, there's something that comes from being around people that you feel like are similar to you, and you just feel very comfortable in that environment.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me want to stay because they were just awesome mentors and they helped me figure out what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't even know research was an option for undergraduates when I first got into undergrad. It took me a couple years to figure that out. Yeah, I had no idea really what was going on, to be honest.
I was right there with you. I didn't know either.
Yeah, I was like, I can get paid to go to grad
They
school?
don't really tell you that stuff. You just figure it out.
Yeah. So that was awesome.
Unless you listen to the EpicEarth podcast.
Yeah,
Right on,
yeah. We mention it with every undergrad, basically.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then other than that, I think my passion for the environment, well, my dad has always been a really environmentally conscious person, I think. He's very anti the stereotypical American lawn. So we have a lot of native plants in our yard,
Awesome.
which I never realized how awesome that actually is to witness. And he's a great guy. And then I was part of something called the Environmental Service Program at Florida State University, which is a community-based volunteer organization. And we would do lots of different things where we would do field work, like we had this monarch butterfly survey that we would do, or we'd go clean up parks, or we would go camping, which is more fun. But we did go camping once and do a huge beach cleanup at the same time.
Cool.
So combining those fun things, getting outside is the best way to really, I think, get into this field and enter the field.
Yeah. especially when you do it in a community that you feel comfortable and safe in. I think a lot of us express that, like, we got into our fields because we love being in the outdoors, or we spent a lot of time outside as children. But I also do believe heavily that, like, a lot of people are drawn into certain sectors because of the community that is built around that sector. So that's awesome that you got to have that experience, and you got to go out and experience that with the community that was built at Florida State University.
Yeah, it was a great time. I'm really grateful for it. I know not everybody gets that opportunity. So, yeah, I feel very privileged. Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So now you're here at Boise State. You've been working very diligently and very hard on your research project. So do you want to talk a little bit about what it is that you're researching?
Yeah. So I'm using LiDAR, which is an active remote sensing technique. And remote sensing, just to kind of define that, I guess, is just using light in some fashion, either the light that comes from the sun or light coming off of the instrument, to basically collect imagery of the objects surrounding you. So I use LiDAR, which is an active remote sensing technique, and it uses wavelengths in the mid-infrared, or just laser beams that I shoot out at these peatland areas, and I get information about what makes up the trees, like coordinates, X, Y, and Z coordinates, so I get their elevation and their width and everything, height, and like their intensity, so the intensity that the pulse returns, and so that provides information about what's wood or what's leaves on the tree. And then I'm looking at something called leaf area index, and I'm measuring that from the LiDAR information. And leaf area index is basically just a measure of how much leaf coverage you have in an area. And it's really important for modeling things like carbon flux and methane flux. And peatlands hold an estimated 44% of the world's soil organic carbon.
Wow. And
they're super sensitive, we think, to climate warming. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we have them under these different elevated temperature conditions and elevated carbon dioxide conditions, just to see what would happen at a small scale to these peatlands and how much carbon might come out of that peat and be released back into the atmosphere.
Yeah,
interesting.
That is really cool. Can you talk a little bit about how you control, like, so you're working in a peatland, and clearly, you know, in normal circumstances, you don't have anything to sort of contain that, and it's like just affected by whatever is in the atmosphere and how much sunlight's hitting it and all those natural confounding factors. So how is it that you can test them under different sort of environmental conditions? What do you guys do in order to do that?
Great, thanks for asking that. Yeah, they have these pretty futuristic looking chambers that are just really awesome. I remember the first time I saw them, I was in awe. But if you think of like a greenhouse, and then make that into an octagon shape and just place it over a section of the peatland.
How
that's
big?
Basically, I know they are 12 meters in diameter, so it's fairly confined space. And then I don't know how tall they are. Maybe 30 meters tall. They're pretty tall.
Yeah.
Pretty tall. But yeah, some of the trees. This study has been going on since 2015, and some of the trees are already growing out of the chamber. So they're open top, so they're not totally protected.
Okay.
But they're more protected than, other parts of the peatland that are not in these chambers. And so with that chamber, they have these vents on the, like, surrounding it on the walls, and that's how they emit, like, hot air, basically, onto the peatland. And then they also have carbon dioxide being injected into the soil, and then they have soil warming going on. And that's happening at a few different levels, from like plus 1.5 degrees Celsius to plus 9 degrees Celsius, which is the extreme, and they don't really expect that, but it's possible. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds like an expensive setup.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. A lot of people from a lot of areas are working on this project. Like I said, my undergraduate advisor at Florida State was working on it, and then Nancy Glenn's working on it over here in Idaho. So lots of people are throwing money at it.
Yeah. Well, it seems really important and very relevant to much of what we're seeing these days, especially because we can't observe things necessarily on some of the time scales that we want to observe them. So being able to control those factors is really cool, especially in just one spot. It's nice that you don't have to go to like 30 different spots to like get those different variations. So very cool. You also do a little bit of work outside of your research. So Angela has worked with me on our student advisory board here at Boise State. And basically, do you just want to talk a little bit about what that is and what you've done for that project?
Sure, yeah. The Student Advisory Board is a group of undergraduates and graduate students at Boise State that we're just working on building a more inclusive and diverse environment and figuring out ways that we could do that in the geoscience department at BSU. And so we did that through a number of ways. Worked with Ashley on making cubicle spaces more accessible to undergraduate students because it's difficult, to go from a Zoom class to an in-person class like a Zoom class, and you don't have a place to sit. And then probably the main thing I worked on was the community garden here on campus, which is at just off of Juanita Street, 1415 South Juanita Street, I believe is the address. Really, really nice group of people over there. But my kind of goal with that was just to make gardening more inclusive and accessible to people. So over there, I planned little activities that people could do, and I tried my hardest to make them so that people would feel welcome. So they were totally free, and I tried to engage all the senses in case somebody that was hard of hearing or somebody that was visually impaired or like mobility differences, they wouldn't feel excluded from these activities. And one of my major goals at that garden was to build a wheelchair accessible garden bed out of eco bricks from the city. So they're made out of that plastic that you can't recycle and pressed together by this company here in Boise. I forget their name now. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. It felt really good to just use something that would have sat in a landfill for maybe 1,000 years. And now it's sitting somewhere else, serving some purpose. But yeah, so it's a wheelchair accessible garden bed. And
that's really cool. I didn't know we had that. This is the Boise State Community Garden or something, or?
Yeah, go check it out. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
totally
I will.
Free. Everybody's super nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I honestly, Brian, didn't even know we had it until Angela started working on this project. And then I went out to one of her events one day, and I was just blown away by this just random sort of garden that's in the middle of this like residential area. But it's like so cool, and they like there's the students and people who work out there have done a really fantastic job of keeping things up over there. And this bed that Angela made from the recycled material, quote unquote recycled material, is amazing. It's so awesome. She's done a fantastic job, and I think like if you have not been out there, you should definitely go check it out. To anyone on campus, and get involved. Like the people are so great, and anyone can sort of get in. Even if you don't know how to garden or you're a beginner, like I think people out there are willing to sort of teach you, and that's the whole purpose of the garden, I feel like.
I am a beginning gardener, so.
Oh, I don't have a green thumb to save my life, so.
I found a little corn kernel, and I planted it, and a whole corn stalk started to grow.
Oh my God.
And now it's actually producing corn too, so I literally planted it as a joke, and it just like took off. So it's my first effort. So I definitely need to go check this out. I've been here for 8 years and I've never even heard of this. It's crazy.
Sounds like you're gonna need a harvester pretty soon.
Yeah, it sounds
my
like
one stock. Yeah.
magic green thumb. I've never done that.
Yeah.
Where you just throw something at the dirt.
Yeah.
and
Well,
it
I mean,
grows.
I threw a bunch of different seeds in. That was just the only one that took off. But
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm generally the person that has to buy the hardiest plants because like I forget about them.
Yeah.
I have some that are they've done very well for some reason. They must love me because those poor plants. But this is so awesome, Angela. Thank you for sharing that. And she's done such a fantastic job, and she was such an integral part to the student advisory board and still is. And just her work has been fantastic. So if you guys have any questions about, student advisory board, or if you have any questions about being more inclusive or diverse in the geoscience department, or if you have any questions about the community garden or workspaces, definitely contact Angela or me, and we can get you set up with all the right people. So Angela, what is the best or the most fun thing that you do in your research or out in the field or with the student advisory board? What would you say?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think out in the field, it's just spending time with my peers and my lab manager. So really only 2 people I've gone out with out there. Can I name drop? Or...
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Tao. Shout out Tao. And then Josh Enterfine, who I think a ton of people know because he's helped lots of students with different projects. But yeah, just some really funny moments. I feel like that you don't necessarily get unless you spend 8+ hours a day with somebody.
Yeah.
Just outside, and there's not much else going on. You just run in the scanner, collecting data. Sometimes there's some sitting, sometimes there's some troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Tao and I had some moments with fieldwork for sure. We were experiencing some rough weather.
Oh no.
And the LiDAR system's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're renting it from the government. And I remember we're basically out there in the field. It's all metal that's covering the peeland. And it is the largest lightning rod you can get to.
Oh gosh.
For miles. And so we're not supposed to be out there if there's a storm.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy running the site, I remember he came out to us while we were out there and a storm was rolling in. And he was like, "You need to get out of here. Hurry up." And I was like, "Oh my God, should we pack up this stuff?" And he was like, "Well, the radar doesn't look that bad. It'd probably be okay." And I was like, I don't feel comfortable leaving it outside. Just like we had it covered with some plastic sheet, but that wasn't going to protect it. And I'm so grateful every day that I decided to take the time to pack it all up and just restart that plot. Because as soon as we got to the car, it started hailing really hard. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Yeah, and then Tao and I were playing some game. I forget what it was.
While you were waiting for the storm to pass.
Yeah.
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 It happens. I think a lot of us find ourselves in situations where we have to wait out storms or certain circumstances where we're just sort of waiting around for data to come along. That's so funny. And you're totally right. Like, sometimes those moments are like on the spot. You can't like make that stuff up. You just go out in the field and you have these like spontaneous sort of interactions with people, which is so much fun.
Yeah, I feel like you learn a lot about people too that you work with. Like I've learned a lot about people, their families and stuff that I feel like maybe I wouldn't have learned if I was just wandering in and out of the lab.
Yeah.
Stuff you don't talk about at school, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that. I don't know. It's nice to feel close to people.
I agree.
See, it does seem like the geosciences in general are a closer-knit family than other departments, and I think that that's one of the main reasons, because, like, in physics, we all show up, do our physics group stuff. We occasionally will hang out outside, but, like, none of our work deals with going out and doing things together like that, so we just don't connect in that same way.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized that either until like switching departments and going back and forth, like how different that actually is. So
yeah. It is so integral. You're right, to the geoscience and to some of those science fields. I do feel like having that field component, especially like, I mean, we have to admit we're put into some really awkward and tough positions sometimes. Being in a lightning storm is one of them. Climbing up the side of a volcano is another, and you're just, this sucks, right? Like this is the worst thing ever, but having people along who can, you know, make light of the situation and not light in that you're not being serious about your surroundings, but that you're like, you know, you're able to laugh with each other and sort of joke about it because you know it sucks for everybody. So, those are the best type of interactions. I agree with both of you on that. So Angela, if you could describe your work using an analogy, what would that be?
So I think since Minnesota is the land of 10,000 lakes, and that's where I do all my field work, I decided I think that grad school is like learning to ice skate on a lake where it's thin in some spots and thicker in others, and it's a really, really big lake. So you're on like Lake Superior, and there are people around, but you have to skate kind of far sometimes to get to them. And put in more effort because they might not necessarily know you need help before you come to them. But I think I'm getting better at skating.
That's a really great analogy. I like that a lot.
Thanks.
Thank
you.
I feel like I'm on thin ice all the time.
Yeah. There's some hefty thin spots.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, it can always get thinner, so.
Oh, gosh. No, that's an awesome analogy. I like that. And it's definitely something to keep in mind for grad school, just in general. Just being, you know, you've got those waxing and waning stages of this is really difficult. And then at times you're like, this is amazing. And I'm like, gonna graduate. And then you're like, no, I'm not. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And but it's all a learning process. And by the way, you're doing an amazing job, and just watching your presentations and hearing this interview so far, it's like you've nailed it, girl. You're well on your way to being a peatland expert.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
Have you thought about doing the 3-minute thesis?
Oh yeah. I was actually gonna do that. When is that?
Spring?
Yeah, it's in spring semester.
Yeah, they start signing people up pretty soon, I think.
Towards the end of this semester, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
You should.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah.
I did it. I had a lot of fun. I'd be happy to help at all in any way. So.
Yeah, thank you.
I always encourage it. I want more people to do it. I think it was a great experience for myself. So.
Brian is a 3-minute thesis master. He's a master of many things, and that is one of them.
Sweet. All right. Well. Yeah, I'll probably hit you up.
Cool.
So you talked a little bit about this lightning storm that you and Tao had to, you know, dodge. Do you have any other really fun stories from the field that you like to share?
I have a couple. I don't know. One I might not want to share. There's one that I'm debating sharing, but I think it's okay.
Yeah.
One time we were doing work and Tao fell into the bog.
Oh no!
And that was pretty funny because we were rushing because of the rain.
Yeah.
So he was like kind of running around one of the little platforms. So basically we are lifted off the bog on this metal platform, and he just slipped because it was wet.
Oh no!
But it was super funny, and he was okay.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think it's fine. Sorry if it isn't.
Ciao, we rally behind you. Don't worry.
Yeah. What else has happened? I've definitely had some embarrassing moments out there, and there are tons of cameras all over the place. So I'm like, I know that's on camera somewhere, but people aren't necessarily monitoring those cameras all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping just nobody sees it. And then we had like. The last time I went, we had a fire in the bunkhouse. Not caused by Josh or I, but mushrooms. Just flaming.
Mushrooms, huh?
Yeah. So there were these ecologists there at the same time as us, and they were using the drying oven, if you guys are familiar.
Oh, yeah.
Just like where you put
Yeah, we put soil samples in dry.
Yeah, just to get the moisture out so that you can run them on different instruments and not have the moisture mess with spectra. Anyway, yeah, and so we were all eating dinner together, and all of a sudden the fire alarm's going off, and I'm just staring at this girl's pot of boiling macaroni, and I'm like, how is that setting off the fire alarm?
Very sensitive.
And so we go over, and we're turning off the stove and just looking at the macaroni pot, and then this guy that was also there turns around, and there's just flames in the lab right next to the dining room, and we're all like, ah. And so Josh, thank God for him, because I just ran out of the bunkhouse. I was like, ah! He got the fire extinguisher and put it out. Yeah.
Was that the last leg of the drying oven?
No, the drying oven was actually okay.
Okay.
They even salvaged some samples. So
Wow.
it was mainly just the paper bags that totally flamed.
Paper bags.
Yeah, they put paper bags in there. I think you're supposed to, though. I think maybe it was just too high of a temperature.
No.
That might have been the problem. Yeah.
Fun.
Super fun.
Those ecologists and the mushrooms.
I am interested about your work with mushrooms in the past, though.
Yeah.
What does that entail?
Funny enough, that ecologist there, I had run some mushroom samples for him when I was an undergrad, and then we met again, and he set his samples on fire. And he was like, wow, I shouldn't have been so stressed running your samples when I was an undergrad. You're really laid back and funny. But yeah, so my work then, I worked with something called Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, which is a mouthful, and basically it's just a way of finding out the percent of labile carbon and stable carbon in your peat or mushroom sample. So I was looking at percentage of carbohydrates, which are more labile, and then methane, which is more stable. Maybe don't quote me on that. I don't remember. But yeah, that was my undergraduate work, was all working with that. And so I would spend a lot of time grinding up mushrooms and then putting them like a tiny, tiny bit on this diamond and looking at the spectra and then submitting that.
That's cool.
To my advisor and my master's student, who I miss a lot.
Did that put you off eating mushrooms at all?
No, I still love mushrooms.
Oh, good.
Yeah, lion's mane is my favorite for sure. It's awesome.
Do you go mushroom like
foraging?
Yeah.
I have walked with other people that know how to do that. I don't trust myself at all to do that.
That's fair.
Yeah, do you guys enjoy mushrooms?
I do. I've only been foraging haphazardly. But yeah, I don't eat like a lot of them, but I'm pretty basic when it comes to mushrooms.
I'll eat the mushrooms that are at the store.
Yeah.
I've never gone foraging, but I did see a video on Reddit once where this guy foraged the mushroom, goes to eat it, and a spider like crawls out from under it and just crawls right up his face.
Oh, wow.
And I have no desire to ever forage for wild mushrooms after that. So.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh my god. I actually love spiders, but I'm not sure I'd love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might put anyone off of foraging for mushrooms, even if you do, like spiders.
Yeah, sounds like a big spider. But yeah, I've always wanted to find chicken of the woods. That mushroom, I'm pretty sure you can only find it while foraging. They don't have it in stores. I mean, you could probably get it from farmer's market if somebody picked it.
Yeah.
Where is it normally found?
I think there were some, I think, in North Florida, so where I was for undergrad, and then in the Northeast.
Oh.
Yeah, you need more humidity.
Yeah.
I don't think we would find them here.
Yeah, it's too dry.
I think so. Yeah. Again,
I don't know.
You might do your own research.
You know what? Anything you say about mushrooms right now, I'm gonna just take your word for it, because I know nothing.
That's the funniest part about presenting to non-specialists. I'm like, I could say anything.
Yeah, and
I don't though, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your knowledge with us. We know though that Brian will never go foraging, so we know not to set up a trip for that and invite Brian along.
Right.
I'll come watch. I'll watch spiders crawl on your face.
Okay, that's fair.
Just wash the
Passive
mushroom.
spectator.
Yeah.
Serious question.
So I'm going to ask you sort of a really serious question at this moment, because we like to ask all our guests this. How would you solve a scientific problem if you were from Mars?
So since Mars has a lot of dust storms, and they're really strong, not that I would know, haven't been in one, but I would go there and then collect the energy, find a way to store and collect that energy from those dust storms, and then come back here and power my own food truck for, totally clean energy.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
That is amazing. I love this idea. I think you should talk to Brian Jackson. I think we can make this happen. He studies dust devils on Mars.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's sick.
yeah.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Harness that energy and then feed us tacos or whatever, mushrooms.
Yeah, what
Mushroom
what
tacos,
would
yeah.
the food be?
That's a great question. Yeah, I was probably imagining tacos. Yeah. I
So
think-
everyone likes tacos, so
Especially from a taco truck. That's the best way to eat tacos.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I was gonna do a taco cake truck, like tacos with cake,
Oh.
Wow.
like not together,
Not infused,
separately,
just
but you could put tacos and cake. Because there was a time in my life where I would eat tacos and then cake a lot for
And then cake.
a while. It's like my comfort foods,
Yeah. That actually would be amazing. I think that like having tacos and then being like, you know what, I could go for something sweet right now.
Yeah.
Savory and sweet.
Have you guys heard of? It was this cake that was super easy to make. Have you heard of the depression cake? Like, it's not for the mental illness, but like back in the Depression era when they didn't have milk or eggs, you could just make a cake with flour, baking soda, vinegar, and water, and I think some oil and sugar. So
Wow.
kind of a lot of things, but they were low on eggs and milk.
Yeah. The most expensive things, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's delicious. I recommend it.
They should call that the grad student cake
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
You need the time to make it, though.
That's true.
it's pretty fast.
Is it?
Not gonna lie. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty fast.
You should go on with Nailed It and make that cake. Have you watched that show?
Actually, I haven't.
Oh, it's great. You need to watch that show.
Yeah.
Or actually go onto a professional baking show and make that cake, because, yeah, it's fun to watch people mix together ingredients. And my cakes are made from boxes, so
Nothing wrong with that. I use plenty of boxes myself. They're good.
Awesome. So, okay, we'll expect you and Brian Jackson to work together to give us some clean energy into your taco cake truck.
Is he in the geo department?
He's physics, but he works a lot with the geoscience department. So, shout out to Brian.
Yeah, he's specifically astronomy, but yeah, he works with geoscience people. He works all around the school, honestly. He's a great guy. Yeah, definitely reach out to him.
Yeah. So we're going to jump into the segment now where we ask you to describe your research to 3 different sets of people. This is kind of just your elevator pitch to different sets of people, like if you had to explain to them in the time it took you to take an elevator somewhere, how would you explain it? So the first set of people we're going to ask you to explain this to are a 4th or 5th grade class.
5th grader.
Okay. Yeah. So my research entails shooting lasers at trees to get 3D images that I use to measure the trees.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you think that would make sense?
Yeah. I think they're just going to be enamored by the fact that you shoot lasers at things.
I remember I said that in a class once, in Jody Brandt's class, and then she took me to the side and she was like, I think she said this in front of the class. she was like, I'm glad, or it's funny that she thought it was funny that I said shoot, like lasers. I've never heard that.
Shoot lasers.
Yeah.
Like some Star Wars, like.
Mm-hmm.
Do the trees have like laser tag vests on them?
Yeah. They light up every time you shoot them. Okay, so the second group of people is going to be maybe an undergraduate or someone in high school that's a little bit, like they know a little bit about your research, but if they're outside your area of expertise.
Undergrad.
Okay. Yeah. So I use an active remote sensing technique called LiDAR, which shoots laser beams at a tree, and I get laser beams returned to the instrument that give me information about the tree that they hit, and I can use this information to make measurements related to the tree.
Perfect. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Great.
Cool. And then the last set of people, or the person that you have to explain your research to, is maybe a professional at a conference. So how would you go about describing what you do to them?
Expert.
I use LiDAR in the mid-infrared wavelength to gather information about conifer trees in peatlands, specifically bogs, which are under elevated temperature conditions and elevated carbon dioxide conditions. And I use the 3D models derived from the LiDAR to measure leaf area index using 3D pixel or voxel density.
Sweet.
Okay.
Voxel density.
Yeah.
What is voxel density?
Yeah, so when you first get LiDAR data, it's kind of broken up into these points.
Yeah.
And basically, you can make your data more computationally efficient and maintain accurate measurements by using something called voxels, which are 3D pixels. So it's like breaking up your points into cubes. And so you can specify whatever size of cube you want. Right now I'm using 5 centimeter voxels, so these 5 centimeter cubes, and you just basically set down this grid of cubes on top of your 3D points, and inside that cube, if it finds a point, whether it's 1 or 35 points in one cube, it just counts it as one cube. And so it brings your data down and condenses it down. And basically I'm using however many cubes are in a space to make measurements of leaf area index. And it gets kind of math heavy here. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys really want to hear about that.
I mean, I'd love to hear it, but
I might show you my code. And you might be able to help me make sure it's right. But yeah.
That was awesome. I kind of put you on the spot there because I made you define what voxel was, and you nailed it. So
I hope that made sense.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not a professional in this, and I could understand it. So
it made sense.
Yeah.
So you said those boxes are 5 centimeter by 5 centimeter?
Yeah, you can specify any
also,
size.
What is the resolution of the LiDAR?
It's very fine resolution, so it's within, we can get resolution within centimeter.
Cool.
That's awesome. And I guess I should have asked you this before. So there's different ways of collecting LiDAR. So there's aerial LiDAR, there's satellite LiDAR, and there's ground LiDAR. So maybe you could just give us a brief overview of what the 3 differences are and then what you use specifically to collect it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't even mention that. So satellite LiDAR is if you had a satellite up revolving around the Earth in space, and it's actively emitting laser pulses to the ground, and you're getting satellite imagery that is 3-dimensional. And then aerial LiDAR is when you get in a plane with a LiDAR sensor instrument connected to it, and you fly over your area of interest and send out these laser beams, and it's less, the resolution's a little less fine than what I'm working with, which is terrestrial LiDAR, where you set down the laser on a tripod and you move it around the object that you want to look at in 3D, and
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know about terrestrial ground LiDAR until like a couple years ago, and now they've implemented it even into new phones, so the new iPhones have it, which is super cool. Yeah.
Wow.
That's why they have all those cameras on them, is because you can download programs to do LiDAR with them.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So the accessible technology is really awesome. I love it when these things like are made accessible to the general community, because I'm like, yes. Try these out. I don't have to go buy a commercial LiDAR system that costs like thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. I can buy an iPhone, which costs tens of thousands of dollars, and use that instead.
And when are they going to add an infrasound microphone to the iPhones?
I think we should petition them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody is a geospatial analyst.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you can get sponsored or something like that then. That'd be awesome. Good luck.
I don't think it'd work. I don't think they'd buy it.
So, Angela, this has been such an awesome interview. I'm just going to finish up with a couple of more serious questions for you.
Serious question.
So since you've worked in the garden and, you know, you're kind of good about, you know, I don't know, have a green thumb, sort of mindful gardening. What are your thoughts on garden gnomes?
My thoughts on garden gnomes?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on what it is. I'm a huge fan of frogs and toads in your garden, like those big statues. I almost got one. I was begging my partner to buy me one just for inside my room. Yeah, I think a gnome is pretty neat. It reminds me of, what was that movie? Over the Hedge?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was an awesome movie.
Throwback.
I used to have that video game.
I had that too.
On GameCube? Yeah, it was awesome. I was addicted to that thing.
Yeah.
Pretty sure you could break gnomes sometimes.
Yeah, I think you could.
Oh my god.
Maybe that was one of the mini games or something.
It was awesome. That was a great game. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, more gnomes for sure.
Yeah.
More gnomes, 2023.
Yes, more gnomes.
Vote gnome.
Vote gnome.
Make
I
America
love it.
gnome again.
Yeah, we need that poster made. Vote gnome. Okay, last serious question. What animal is the biggest party animal in your opinion?
Oh man, that's crazy. Let me think about this.
Yeah, there's a lot of animals out there.
I mean, I want to say my favorite animal, which is a chimney swift, but honestly, they're not really partiers.
Wait, a what?
A chimney swift is like a small black bird. I should have worn my chimney swift shirt. Oh, it's very cute. Totally look it up. But honestly, I would just say a bat. That's probably the biggest party animal because it's bats.
It's bats.
That little saying. Yeah. They're crazy. Yeah, but
I thought the
bats are
saying
super
was it's
cute.
corn.
It's corn. Yeah.
Oh no. We now officially have that on our podcast. I was gonna wonder. I wondered how long it would take us to get this.
I thought
the
somebody
corn
was going to say
statement.
it.
Yeah,
after
when
you
I was talking about
planted your
corn. Yeah.
It's bats. Yeah, they're pretty erratic. They're up all night.
Yeah, the nightlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember in elementary school when I was on the playground, a bat just like flew over my head, almost hit me.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, PSA. One of my friends was holding a bat with her bare hands on Instagram, and she doesn't have her rabies shots. Never do that.
Yeah.
Never just hold a bat with your bare hands.
No.
That's such a bad idea.
I actually heard
Such a
that
bad
if a
idea.
bat gets into your house, you're supposed to actually go get checked for rabies, even if it hasn't, like, you haven't technically been around it. Like, it hasn't landed on you or anything, because,
Exactly.
yeah, they're disease-carrying things, unfortunately.
I always heard
Cuties, though.
when a bat goes into your house, you just burn your house down. That's the end of it.
Maybe the 1%ers do
Yeah.
that. In their, like, 20,000 square foot house, they're like, oh no, it's in the West Wing. Tear down the house. I don't know.
That's how people feel about cockroaches.
Yeah. Oh, my girlfriend's like that. She hates cockroaches.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily enjoy them, but they're whatever. They're harmless to me, so.
There's something wrong with them.
Yeah,
There's
something wrong. Definitely not the partiers. They're just like the weird things at night.
Oh, another party animal. Gotta be a jumping spider. They're so cute.
Oh, yeah.
They're like little party grandpas. They have mustaches. I mean, there's
That's
nothing
true.
more.
Yeah.
Nothing says party like a mustache.
Especially on a party grandpa.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Brilliant. Those are awesome answers. I love it.
Thanks.
Now every time I see a bat, well, I don't know that I'll ever see a jumping spider.
I never see bats. So.
There are so many jumping spiders around Boise, I've noticed.
Huh.
A lot more than Florida. Like, I've had some pretty big ones, and I have some awesome pictures of them.
Oh my god.
You do have a lot of spiders here, so
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I don't
Maybe
know
I
what
just
those-
am like don't see them.
Good at
Ignorance
keeping
is
them
bliss. Well, Angela, thank you so much for coming on. It's been like a real pleasure. You're so awesome. I'm so glad that we got to interview you. You're gonna nail it. How long do you have before you graduate?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's kind of an honor. I was pretty flattered you wanted to even listen. How long do I have till I graduate? Well, I am gonna apply for candidacy for the spring.
Woo-hoo.
So hopefully then, but if things don't work out, I have another chapter that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So maybe August.
Nice.
But we're shooting for spring.
Yeah, you got this. It's in the bag.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much. And yeah, if anyone has any questions about peatlands or gardening or gnomes or bats, party bats, get in contact with us and we'll put you in contact with Angela.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good time.
Sweet.
Well, that was an epic conversation.
We'd like to thank all of our listeners.
Tune in next time for another Epic Earth podcast. And with us to kickstart our third season, we have this awesome person, Angela Seibert, who... Sorry.
Seibert. You're good. I don't know which one I like better.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to this segment of our show where we ask you to describe your research to 3 different sets of people.
Can we actually pause for a second? Sorry, my laptop is dying.
Uh-oh.